Hello, and welcome to 6 Feet Apart, a socially distanced, up-close look on what's going on at the University of Detroit Mercy during the coronavirus crisis. I'm your host, Jorge Reyna, and we've got a great show for you today. Our very special studio guest will be Professor Pamela Zarkowski, the Provost and Academic Vice President of the University. Provost Zarkowski will answer some questions about how Detroit Mercy has risen to the challenge of COVID-19 pandemic and what some of the biggest hurdles have been. We'll also have a chance to watch some student-produced videos that give another perspective to the life of 2020. Our first two videos relate to coming back to campus. The first video is from Tanasia Campbell, a senior communication studies major, and the second is from John Walgartz, a sophomore communication studies major. Let's take a look.
The fall semester is well underway here at the University of Detroit Mercy, and students are taking only 10% of classes face-to-face. Take a look as we explore the campus and see all the changes that COVID has caused. Campus entry, bathroom capacity limits, stair modifications are just a few of the many changes happening at Detroit Mercy. Students, professors, and faculty are required to wear a mask when indoors and to practice social distancing precautions. Over half of Detroit Mercy's student body is enrolled in online courses or hybrid courses that will switch to online near Thanksgiving. Students are finding parking spots with ease this semester, whereas around this time last year, the parking lot would be full to capacity. With all the changes given the pandemic, the campus is sort of peaceful. There are many precautions set in place, just no students to follow them. Like many public places around the world, water fountains have been disabled to protect the safety of others, and markers have been set in place to divide the hallways to keep people separated as far as possible. Overall, Detroit Mercy is doing everything in its power to keep people safe, and with the help of each and every one involved, we can move forward, tightened together against COVID-19.
Classes have returned to campus at the University of Detroit Mercy, but there have been some changes around campus because of the pandemic. Here are some examples. So right now I'm standing in front of the Commerce and Finance building, and every building has this sign which says face coverings must be worn at all times when indoors. So I'm going to go inside, so I better put on my face mask. I just entered the Commerce and Finance building, and there's a sanitation station right here. It's in every entrance of every building on campus, and every student must sanitize their hands before they come to class. You also must be 6 feet away from other people in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. In all classrooms at the University of Detroit Mercy, all the chairs have been placed 6 feet apart. This will help prevent the spread of the virus and improve the learning environment. Some other changes on campus include the water fountains being disabled and a sign talking about avoiding physical contact. Students and faculty should always bring water with them when they come to class. And when you're in the halls, don't do any means of physical contact, for example, a fist bump, because it spreads COVID and we're trying to prevent it. So don't do any of these things until the pandemic is over. And finally, there should be only one person in the elevator. Everyone, stay safe from COVID, wash your hands, practice good hygiene, and social distance.
So the campus looks a lot different now. Some people say it's like a ghost town. But as we all agree, there are plenty of safeguards to help stop spread COVID-19. Now, I'm joined in the studio today by Dr. Pamela Zarkowski, the Provost and Academic Vice President of the University of Detroit Mercy. Dr. Zarkowski, we're glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Now, can you tell us about the responses that the University of Detroit Mercy has had, in response to COVID-19?
Sure. Let me go back to March when there was a decision made to move all classes on all 3 campuses to an online format. That was based, of course, as you know, from guidelines from the CDC as well as our governor, who made certain decisions in order to protect the citizens of the state of Michigan. We did that with a short turnaround. By that I mean there were a couple days of classes that were canceled, and then you all returned to a different format, a different way of learning, a different way of being evaluated, and that was online. And I was very impressed by the flexibility of both the students and the faculty and the employees as we basically flipped in a very short amount of time. Since that time, or shortly thereafter, I decided to identify 7 different work groups who would be looking at how we were going to manage the summer, but more importantly, how were we going to manage fall. And the videos that you just saw are an outgrowth of some of the decisions that we made. Their different committees have different tasks. So to give you an overview of what they were, we looked at events and celebrations. We looked at wellness and well-being. We looked at teaching and instructional technology. We looked at health and facilities. We also looked at other areas, including the student and residence life for another group that we were very sensitive to. At the same time, I need to remind you both the School of Dentistry and the School of Law were also going through a similar kind of evaluation of how they were going to do things. And so those 7 work groups started looking at best practices, started looking at what we needed to do as the University of Detroit Mercy, and made recommendations. And those recommendations would go to the President's Cabinet, which includes the President and myself and other Vice Presidents. And so as each group made a decision about a policy or a procedure or a protocol, that was shared with the leadership of the university, and then we started implementing them. So Titans Together is an outgrowth of that, for example. So we have a website with lots of information. We decided that we were starting to get questions, so we needed FAQs, so that was added. Sister Renee Kettering, who works in our IT department, came up with a process for the screening to come on campus, which again, part of the video showed that green screen to let you get on campus. And so throughout the spring and most of the summer, we were working on policies and procedures. Another key part of that, because I won't outline all the different things that the committees were doing, was communication. So as you know, the President sent out a weekly update about what was going on. There were email messages that came either from my office, but I'm very grateful for Dean Monica Williams to make sure that students and other individuals, stakeholders received information. We kept alumni informed. And Debbie Stiefel, who is the Vice President for Enrollment and Student Life, also made sure that students interested in applying or accepted at Detroit Mercy were also receiving information. So I would say that what occurred since March was a focused set of activities to help prepare for summer and fall, communication strategies, and then we are always evaluating. There is an ongoing evaluation, and you probably saw some of that when we would update a web page or slightly tweak something, because we were listening to what Governor Whitmer was saying, looking at what the CDC and state guidelines were, looking at higher education in general as to what we needed to do to prepare. And so concurrent with all that, we were modifying facilities. And again, all the signs that you see, the masks, the hand sanitizers were all the outcome of all those different discussions. So multifaceted, many people involved, a lot of change in a very short amount of time.
Now, can you tell me about the adjustments of workload? Because I know not being able to see everyone on campus anymore may adjust the workload for you. So can you tell me about the workload that...
My workload or everybody else's workload?
Let's start with your workload.
So, fair enough. Yeah, I would say it was one of the busiest summers that I have ever had. Between all the different meetings and moving to Zoom meetings, which it seems one meeting after another. I called myself Zoom Zarkowski for a while because it just seemed like I would go from meeting to meeting. And there were a lot of times when I was reading material from I was in contact with other AJCU and Mercy institutions to see what they were doing so that we could look at best practices. I was meeting with a lot of individuals and talking with a lot of people. So it was a very busy summer, and I actually came in on weekends and came on campus. I was considered an essential personnel. And so a lot of that was in my office, drafting certain things, reading certain drafts, meeting with certain individuals so we could get it all right, for want of another way of doing it, whether it's policy and procedures. So it was somewhat exhausting, but also very rewarding to see how everybody was stepping up to help.
Now, as far as, let's talk about student enrollment, because
Sure.
originally student enrollment would be about 5,000 kids on campus. Now, with not many people now in the dormitory buildings, how did you guys have to adjust to make sure we can cut that in half and maybe less, so that way we can prevent the spread of COVID?
Sure. So you have a couple questions in that. So when we talk about 5,000 students, remember that's all 3 campuses. And so we can't forget School of Law and School of Dentistry. We actually just had a census. There's an official count that occurs in late September, early October. So we're at about 4,900 students to some degree. We have dual enrolled, again, graduate students and professional students. But I think your question is, how did we adjust in terms of classroom space and gathering space? And so some of that was facilities worked very closely with the different deans in the buildings or the different supervisors in certain buildings. So they walked around to see, what does a conference room look like? What does a classroom look like? How can we maintain social distance? And so there was a lot of planning that went into how close or far can we be from each other? What's the capacity of that classroom, that lab, that studio, for theater practices and so forth and so on. So it was a partnership with whoever understood the building and the space, the registrar's office, facilities, and others to try to determine how we could make a safe learning and working environment. So that included also looking at different strategies like adding plexiglass or turning off water fountains or making sure there were signs on elevators. So facilities really took a big load when it came to kind of evaluating how we could best use meetings. But we've made it safe. Certain aspects of certain buildings are closed down. You might have seen that, some of the lounges or some of the gathering spaces. So we basically stored some of that furniture so that people wouldn't be tempted to gather. But I've been very impressed by what I've observed on campus and everybody kind of following the guidelines.
Hey, socially distance right here.
Oh,
right?
we're socially distant right here, which I'm very appreciative of. And when we walk around, we see people with face masks. And if I may add, we recently had a Higher Learning Commission visit. It's part of our accreditation process. And we had an on-campus visitor, and she wanted to walk around and see what we were doing, so we didn't know where she would go. And she visited a couple buildings, including one where she saw 3 students studying socially distant with their face masks on. So again, wasn't prompted, wasn't set up that way. Very impressive about how everybody is following the rules and regulations.
Dr. Zarkowski, we got some more questions coming up for you, but first, let's take a look at some more student-produced videos. The first one is from Nicholas Cookie, a senior communication studies major who takes a look at online classes and what's it like to go to college at home. The second is by R.A. Chesterman, a senior communication studies major who interviewed a professor who has switched to teaching courses online. Let's take a look.
Due to the corona pandemic, school has been very different this semester. Something I've heard a lot of people talk about is whether or not school's easier or harder due to being at home. For me personally as a commuter, I think it's a little bit easier, but there are a lot of pros and cons, so I'm going to go through that in this video. A huge advantage of doing school from home is the eating situation. Originally, I'd either have to pack a lunch or pay for some food. Now all I have to do is just pull something out of my fridge or microwave something. Something that is both a pro and a con is being able to listen to lectures when you choose. This is sometimes a nice thing because it allows more flexible scheduling of how you want to do your work on a given day, but also it's a bad thing because it allows you to procrastinate listening to a lecture and to get distracted. This segues perfectly into my next point, distractions. It's really easy to get caught up in watching Netflix, talking to family, or playing video games, when you should be doing homework instead. Something that's a huge advantage for a commuter like me is not having to drive to school. Perks of this include not having to pay for gas, not putting mileage in your car, or having to deal with traffic. This last point only really applies to pet owners, but something that I really loved about staying home is being able to have my pets with me when I'm listening to a lecture or doing homework. Overall, I actually feel like there's a decent chunk of advantages to working from home. Despite this, I'm anxious for things to return back to normal just like everyone else. In the meantime, I'll just try to look at the positives of being at home.
Dr. Weber, what have been some of the difficulties you faced with virtual teaching?
Well, I think the hardest part is not being able to get energy from my students in the classroom. So my type of teaching or my mode of teaching is very interactive, and I tend to walk around the classroom a lot. I get my steps in that way, but also it's my opportunity to really see which students are engaging and getting it and which ones are looking a little confused, and it helps inform me to provide better education for my students.
Did you choose to do virtual teaching, and if so, why?
So I'm assuming you're asking, did I choose to do it online versus in the classroom? Mm-hmm. And my initial choice had been to present some in the classroom and some online synchronously, but with having to have the option of also providing something online while I was teaching in the classroom, for me that was really complicated, so I decided to put all of it online other than some of the exams.
Has there been anything that's gotten easier since you've started virtual teaching?
Well, my technological skills have improved, so I'm better at sharing my screen and moving between things and uploading my YouTube videos and making sure all the sound is working properly. So I'm not making as many errors and there aren't as many glitches, but every class session is a learning experience, an opportunity to learn is the way I look at it.
Do you feel like the University of Detroit Mercy has done a good job in supporting their teachers?
I think overall, yes. Obviously, we always want more, but I know in the summer the instructional design studio team has been phenomenal at designing courses for us and providing support, answering questions, and how to best utilize the materials that are available to us. I do wish we had better options than Blackboard Collaborate and Teams. I find those both somewhat cumbersome and difficult, especially when it comes to having students participate more and being able to see their faces, especially during group presentations. Neither of those platforms work really well for group presentations, and that's something that we do a lot in the School of Nursing and in my course. But overall, I think, yes, we've gotten the support that we've needed to do the best job that we can do.
So we see big changes, not only for students, but for faculty too. Dr. Zarkowski, can you tell us about some of the feedback that you've gotten from faculty and students regarding transitioning to online classes?
I think I get a variety of messages. There's some faculty that are very comfortable teaching online and enjoy that way of interacting, and they have been very creative, very flexible, and very innovative in trying to engage everybody in their classes, as well as being available to answer questions, posting different things, using Blackboard and other ways to communicate with students. At the same time, I have to tell you from a faculty perspective, I have a number of faculty who have said, I want to be back in the classroom with the students face to face. Knowing that we've created classrooms where social distancing and different methods to make sure the classroom is safe is available. And so there's those that miss the in-person. There's some that are managing by teaching online, but we all hope for the day when we can all be back in the classroom. So folks are managing. In terms of, what was the other part of your question?
In terms of students' perspectives, I know you're a faculty perspective, but students' perspectives, I know it's been kind of mixed.
Yeah, right, it is. But I have interacted with some students because we have some students in the Fisher building, and I also teach at the dental school on occasion, do some guest lectures. That's my discipline. And so sometimes what students say is that they miss the ability to interact with each other. The fact that you can either get a cup of coffee or study or meet with someone in person. And so meeting new students or colleagues, if you kind of have some friends or you've been here before, it's a little bit easier. I think some of the first year, whether it's law, dental, or freshmen, are having a little bit of a challenge in terms of trying to meet other individuals. And I think students miss some of the on-campus activities, although I have to give kudos to Dean Williams and Lene in the residence life. People are trying, and the fitness center for that matter, are trying to create opportunities for students to interact with each other. But I have heard from students they would like somewhat more vibrant campus life. So we're working on it. Actually, just had a meeting last week about different ways that we can get students engaged a little bit more, and so they can see each other. And I want to add something, if you don't mind, Jorge.
Right.
We are open to commuter students. So if you're living on campus, great. But we really want our commuter students, if they want to come on campus, you know, the library's open, there's other things going on. We welcome folks who may be taking all their courses online at home or in their apartment to join us on campus. And I imagine you would agree as well. So there'd be some more person-to-person interaction.
Right. Now we'll get back to you, but first, when we look around campus, we still see sports team practicing on the soccer fields and everything, but athletes even in dormitory rooms and overall athletes in general have been struggling to adjust to COVID on campus. So first, let's take a look at Madeline Rush, a member of the women's soccer team, and Matt Johnson, a member of the men's basketball team, who have produced some videos to give a student athlete's perspective on the new normal per se. So let's take a look.
In the middle of a global pandemic, navigating the world of sports has never been harder. Here at Detroit Mercy, student athletes are learning to adapt to their new normal. Here is Alessandra Potini on the women's soccer team giving her insight to COVID-19.
I think COVID hasn't really changed the way soccer's played, but it's definitely changed the environment and the way we have to adjust to things. So every morning we have to do like a survey to make sure that we're safe. We get a temperature taken, we get these wristbands actually, and we just have to stay 6 feet apart, sanitize, clean the equipment. It's kind of a better thing in the sense because we're making sure everything's sanitary and everything's safe. So I don't think the game and the way we've been training and working out, we still can do everything we want to do. It's just we have to be a little bit more safer about things. However, we haven't been able to practice yet, and I don't think we'll be able to do contact, which is going to be very difficult, I think, to get in that chemistry with the game because we can't scrimmage. But we definitely can work on our technical stuff and get stronger, so I'm excited for that.
This is me, Matt Johnson, on a bicycle, point guard, shooting guard for the University of Detroit Mercy Titans. I'm not sure if we're going to have a 2020-2021 basketball season as of yet, but I'm going to do everything in my power to stay prepared and keep hope alive because I really do want to play this year. So I continue to do push-ups, I ride the bike, I do core exercises, I get in the gym, I shoot free throws, I shoot mid-ranges, I shoot threes. I just want to keep hope alive. I just want to be prepared. I'd rather be prepared than unprepared. I actually continue to do a good amount of drills because at the end of the day, it's only bettering myself, and I actually want to play at the next level, which is the NBA or overseas, which is China, and etc.
Daryl Jackson.
I'm interviewing assistant coach Daryl Jackson on the upcoming season. How do you think the season is going to go?
Foot. I think we're going to I don't know. We made some adjustments. And got to bring in some good players. Big fella right here, Torian Thompson, going on there. Obviously, we got Matthew Johnson out of Bonaventure. I just think that we're a lot years better than what we were before. Two.
How do you think the season is going to? How is it going to go? Like, where are we going to play? Things of that nature.
We're going to play for championship. I don't hesitate on saying.
Do you think it's going to be a season?
I'm working like it is going to be. That's the best thing I can probably tell you.
This is me patiently waiting for the upcoming basketball season to be determined or to be announced. I'm excited for the season to begin, but I don't want to be too excited because I really don't know what's going to happen. So we just have to wait and see.
So we can see that athletes are still working hard, but are unsure of what's going to happen. So Dr. Zarkowski, can you tell us about how the athletic department, how you've been communicating with them, and how they're going to adjust with the upcoming seasons possibly?
Sure. I may not have all the information that you're seeking. I have to tell you that because I work with Monica Williams, Dean of Students, who works very closely with Athletic Director Robert Vowles. I do know in meetings that I've attended with Mr. Vowles that there's much discussion in terms of how they were planning for practice. You saw on the video some of the screening that they're doing for athletes, and they've really worked very hard in what they call socialization, trying to help the athletes as they practice, as they study, as they go on their business, as it were, to make sure that they're following appropriate protocols and policies and procedures. So I would say that the athletic department has its own set of rules and regulations that they have really tried to educate the athletes about that. And again, because I work with residence life and student life, we do hear on occasion, when athletes have either a concern or want more information, and Robert Vowles and his staff are working very closely with all of them to make sure their questions are answered and they're kept safe in whatever they're doing.
Okay, so let's kind of transition because we're not going to go into specifics, but there has been some student athletes who have tested positive for COVID. So any partake that you want to get onto that?
I would say as we look at any student or employee who tests positive, the protocol is basically the same. There is an immediate response in that the Wellness Center and Student Affairs, which is Dean Williams, is notified. We have a whole protocol for contact tracing. The right individuals are made aware. So if for some reason a student can't attend class, the faculty is notified. And I think the athletic department is also working to have quick testing of an athlete so that we can get results in a quicker manner so that they can continue whether attending classes or participating in practices. And so whatever the student or the employee, we have a process in place. And when someone's identified as positive COVID, that process is immediately implemented. And then when and if that person can return to work or return to the class, there's also a process for that to make sure that the faculty are informed that a student can return or is safe to return, if you want to use that phrase.
Okay. Now, as you can see, life goes on at the University of Detroit Mercy. The university in one of America's hard-hit cities is doing a great job staying safe and continuing to provide a high-quality instruction for all the students. So, Dr. Zarkowski, can you give us some words of encouragement to move forward from this? Because I know COVID is not going away for a while now, but to move forward, what would you have to say to your students and faculty?
I would say that we have adjusted well to the new normal, that we are really have shown a light on how Detroit Mercy can be flexible, can be proactive, can work together, and to keep the safety of employees and students on the forefront. So I would say there's hope. We know there's lots of discussion on the national level about a vaccine and other ways that we can fight this particular disease. But I think being very frank with each other about what we expect of each other, being very respectful of each other, and keeping the bar very high, that what we do as a family, a Detroit Mercy family, so we can protect each other. And I would also say communicate. It's very important for both employees and students to let us know what they're thinking, how they're thinking, or how we can make their educational experience or their athletic experience, their on-campus or their commuter experience better. And so we want to hear from students, especially, so that we can work with student leaders as well as this wonderful presentation that you're doing to inform our students about how they can have a great college experience here at Detroit Mercy.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for sharing and thanks for joining us today. It's been a great time talking to you. Keep up the great work with everything with you, Dr. Gary Baldy, and all of us faculty and staff. Thank you so much. Our guest has been Dr. Pamela Zarkowski, the Provost and Academic Vice President of the University of Detroit Mercy. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for watching 6 Feet Apart. Wash your hands, stay distant. Until next time, I'm your host, Jorge Reyna. See you next time.